My daughter's husband called me Deadweight at the family BBQ, so I let them handle their second mortgage without my help. My name is Clara Jensen. I'm 64 years old, and I live in Portland, Oregon. I've lived a quiet life, not flashy, not loud, but I've been dependable, a mother, a friend, a widow, and for the last 7 years, a free babysitter, chef, and emergency bank for my daughter's family. But sometimes, even the most loyal hearts hit a wall. Mine came at a family barbecue, with a paper plate of potato salad in my hands. I heard my son-in-law chuckle, beer in hand, saying, "If Clara didn't live with us, maybe we'd actually be able to afford some peace and privacy. She's kind of dead weight, huh?" He didn't know I was standing right behind him. Sometimes, it's not the big betrayals that break you. It's the casual ones that sound rehearsed. If this story resonated with your soul, hit the subscribe button and let me know where you're listening from in the comments. What country are you watching from right now? The morning sun filtered through the kitchen curtains, casting a soft glow on the counter where I kneaded dough for cinnamon rolls. The house was quiet, save for the faint hum of the fridge and the occasional chirp of a sparrow outside. Melissa and Trent were still asleep. Their kids, Emma, 9, and Lucas, 6, curled up in their beds. I'd been up since 5, not because I had to, but because it felt right. The kitchen was my domain, the one place I could pour myself into without anyone noticing the effort. I'd sold my own house 7 years ago, after Paul's heart attack took him from me, and moved in with Melissa to help out. Help out. That's what I told myself anyway. As I traded my quiet life for theirs, I wiped flour from my hands and checked the clock. 6:45 a.m., time to start the kids' lunches. I sliced apples, spread peanut butter on bread, and tucked a note into Emma's lunchbox. "You've got this, kiddo." She'd roll her eyes if she saw me slip it in, but I knew she kept them, a little stack hidden in her desk drawer. Lucas got a dinosaur sticker on his sandwich bag. He'd squeal when he saw it. Small things, but they mattered. At least I thought they did. By 7, the house stirred. Melissa shuffled in, her hair a mess, nursing a mug of coffee I'd brewed. "Morning, Mom," she mumbled, barely looking up from her phone. "Smells good. Rolls'll be ready soon," I said, smiling. "Want me to get the kids up?" She waved a hand. "I've got it. Trent's got an early meeting, so he's already in the shower." "Trent," I nodded, turning back to the oven. He was a good father, I'd give him that. Coaching Lucas's soccer, helping Emma with her science projects. But there was a distance with me, a polite wall I'd never quite breached. I didn't mind, or so I told myself. I wasn't here for him. I was here for Melissa, for the kids, for the life we'd stitched together after Paul was gone. I never asked for rent. I never kept a ledger. I figured love was its own balance sheet. When their grocery bill ran high, I'd slip $100 into Melissa's purse. When Emma needed ballet lessons or Lucas's soccer camp fees came due, I'd write a check, no questions asked. Last year, when their mortgage payment spiked after a rate adjustment, I covered half without a word. Melissa hugged me, tears in her eyes, and said, "Mom, you're a lifesaver." Trent just nodded, muttering a quick, "Thanks, Clara." I didn't need fanfare. I needed them to be okay. That morning, as the kids tumbled into the kitchen, I plated the rolls, their sticky fingers grabbing before I could set the table. "Grandma, these are the best," Lucas said, icing on his chin. Emma smirked, licking her fingers. "You say that every time." "Because it's true," I said, ruffling his hair. Melissa laughed, snapping a photo. For a moment, everything felt right, warm, whole, like the life I'd always wanted for them. But moments don't last. That afternoon, I was in the backyard, stringing fairy lights for the family barbecue we'd planned. Melissa wanted it to be special. Trent's brother Greg was visiting, and she'd invited half the neighborhood. I'd spent the week prepping, marinating chicken, chopping vegetables, baking a peach cobbler from Paul's old recipe. My hands ached, but I didn't mind. It was for family. Trent came home early, tossing his keys on the counter. Clara, you seen the cooler? He asked, barely glancing at me. Garage, by the toolbox, I said, stirring potato salad. He grunted, heading out. I caught a whiff of his cologne, sharp and expensive, the kind he wore to impress clients. I wondered, not for the first time, if he ever noticed the things I did. The lunches, the bills, the way I kept their world turning. Probably not. He didn't have to. The barbecue was in full swing by 6. Kids ran through the yard, chasing fireflies. Neighbors chatted over beers, their laughter mingling with the sizzle of burgers on the grill. I moved between the kitchen and the patio, refilling platters, wiping spills, smiling when someone complimented the cobbler. Melissa was in her element, playing hostess, her laugh bright. Trent held court by the grill, flipping burgers, joking with Greg. I watched from the sidelines, a paper plate of potato salad in my hands, content to blend into the background. Then I heard it. I'd stepped out to grab more napkins from the kitchen, pausing by the open window to catch my breath. Trent's voice carried, low but clear, edged with that careless chuckle he got after a few beers. Man, if Clara didn't live with us, maybe we'd actually be able to afford some peace and privacy. She's kind of dead weight, huh? Greg snorted. Yeah, bet you'd have a man cave by now. My chest tightened, the plate trembling in my hands. Dead weight. The words sank into me, heavy, sharp, like a blade I hadn't seen coming. I stood there, frozen, the hum of the party fading to a dull roar. Trent didn't know I was there, didn't know I'd heard. I forced my legs to move, slipping back into the kitchen, my face burning. I set the plate down, my fingers numb, and grabbed the napkins, moving on autopilot. Back outside, I smiled, handed out drinks, laughed at a neighbor's joke. But the words looped in my head, each one a bruise, dead weight, like I was dragging them down, like everything I'd given, my home, my savings, my days, was invisible. I glanced at Trent, flipping a burger, his grin easy, unbothered. He hadn't meant for me to hear, but that made it worse. It wasn't a heat-of-the-moment jab. It was what he really thought, casual and rehearsed, like he'd said it before. That night, I lay awake in the guest room, staring at the ceiling. The house was quiet, the kids long asleep, but my mind wouldn't settle. I saw myself 7 years ago, signing the papers to sell my house, packing up Paul's things, telling myself I was doing the right thing for Melissa. I saw the checks I'd written, the meals I'd cooked, the nights I'd stayed up with Emma's math homework, or Lucas's nightmares. All of it, erased by 2 words, dead weight. I wanted to confront Trent, to throw his words back at him, but something stopped me. Anger, yes, but also doubt. Was he right? Was I a burden, clinging to their life because I had none of my own? I thought of the mortgage payment, the one I'd been covering, the one they didn't know was due again next month. They'd struggle without me. Trent's sales job was unsteady. Melissa's part-time work barely covered the kids' expenses. I'd been their safety net, but for what? So he could laugh about me behind my back? I turned on my side, the pillow damp under my cheek. I wasn't sure what I'd do next, but one thing was clear. I couldn't keep pouring myself into a family that saw me as a weight. Not anymore. Trent's words had cracked something open, and whatever came next, I knew it wouldn't be the same. I closed my eyes, the ache in my chest sharper than ever, and wondered how much longer I could stay in a house where my love was taken for granted. What's the most hurtful thing someone said about you when they thought you weren't listening? Drop it in the comments. Let's remind each other we're not alone. The ache from Trent's words, dead weight, lingered like a bruise I couldn't stop pressing. I'd lain awake that night, replaying every sacrifice, every check I'd written, every early morning spent making their lives easier. By dawn, something had hardened in me. I wasn't ready to confront him. Not yet. Words wouldn't undo what he'd said or how it had sliced through me, but I could stop being their invisible crutch. If I was dead weight, I'd let them feel what it was like to carry their own load. I started small. That morning, I didn't get up at 5 to make breakfast. No cinnamon rolls, no packed lunches with notes or stickers. I stayed in bed, staring at the guest room's faded wallpaper, until I heard Melissa shuffling in the kitchen. "Mom," she called, her voice tinged with confusion. "You okay?" "Just tired," I said, pulling on a cardigan as I joined her. "Didn't sleep well." She frowned, pouring coffee. "You sure? You're usually up before the sun." I shrugged, forcing a smile. "Guess age is catching up with me." She nodded, distracted, already scrolling her phone. I sipped my coffee, watching her, wondering if she'd ever noticed how much I did. The kids burst in, rummaging for cereal, and I let them. No offer to scramble eggs or cut fruit. Lucas whined about missing his dinosaur sticker, and Emma glanced at me, expectant. I just sipped my coffee. "Better hurry," I said. "Bus comes soon." Trent breezed through, grabbing his keys. "No rolls today, Clara?" he asked, half joking. But his tone had an edge, like I'd failed a test. "Feeling off," I said, meeting his eyes. "Maybe tomorrow." He grunted, heading out. I watched him go, my chest tight. "Retirement sure looks relaxing," I imagined him saying. And I knew he would, eventually. Let him. I was done performing. Over the next week, I pulled back further. No more slipping cash into Melissa's purse for groceries. No more paying the electric bill when it arrived. No more covering Emma's ballet fees. I stopped cooking dinner, citing a sore back or a headache. "You've got this, Mel," I'd say, when she looked frazzled, her hands full with laundry and work calls. She'd nod, assuming I was just slowing down, her worry more about my age than the truth. I let her think that. It was easier than admitting how deeply Trent's words had cut. One evening, I sat in the living room, knitting a scarf I didn't care about, while Melissa scrambled to make spaghetti. Trent came home late, tossing his jacket on the couch. "Smells basic," he said, peering into the kitchen. "No Clara special tonight?" "She's tired," Melissa snapped, stirring the sauce. "She's not a machine, Trent." He raised his hands, smirking. "Just saying, retirement sure looks relaxing." I kept my eyes on my knitting, my needles clicking steadily. Dead weight, I thought. Let's see how you do without me. His jab stung, but it fueled me too. That night, I opened my laptop and set up a new savings account, transferring the small pension I'd been funneling into their bills. It wasn't much, but it was mine, a lifeline. If they thought I was dragging them down, I'd make sure I could stand on my own. Melissa noticed the shift, though she didn't connect the dots. "Mom, you sure you're okay?" she asked one morning. Her brow creased as she packed the kids' lunches, sloppy sandwiches, no notes. "You've been quiet. Just need a break," I said, stirring my tea. "You and Trent are doing fine, right?" She hesitated, then nodded. "Yeah, of course. Just let me know if you need anything." I smiled, but my mind was elsewhere. They hadn't felt the weight of my absence yet, but they would. The mortgage payment was due soon, the second one they'd taken out to cover renovations. I'd been covering half, quietly, for months. This time, I wouldn't. Let them figure it out. The cracks started showing within days. I'd stopped buying groceries, so the fridge grew sparse. Ketchup, a half-empty milk carton, some wilted lettuce. Melissa rummaged through the pantry one evening, sighing. "We're out of literally everything," she muttered, pulling out a box of stale crackers. "Grocery run," I suggested, flipping through a magazine. She glanced at Trent, sprawled on the couch, scrolling his phone. "Trent, can you go? I've got a deadline," he groaned. "With what money? That client still hasn't paid me." I kept my eyes on the magazine, my pulse quickening. The mortgage. They hadn't mentioned it yet, but I knew it was looming. The bank's email, probably sitting unopened in Trent's inbox. I'd seen the notices before, slipped them into his desk drawer when I paid my share. Not this time. That night, I heard them arguing in their bedroom, voices low but sharp. "Where's the money going, Trent?" Melissa hissed. "We had a plan." "It's not my fault sales are down," he shot back. "You're not exactly pulling in a fortune either." I sat in my room, sipping tea, the mug warm in my hands. The tension was building, a quiet storm I'd set in motion by doing nothing at all. Sometimes revenge doesn't need fire, just absence. I felt a pang for Melissa. She didn't know why I'd stepped back, didn't deserve to be caught in this. But Trent's words had broken something I couldn't rebuild. Not yet. The next morning, Emma came to me, her eyes wide. "Grandma, why's Mom so mad?" She yelled at Dad about money. I patted her head, my heart twisting. "Grown-up stuff, sweetie. They'll figure it out." But they didn't. Not really. By the end of the week, the fridge was nearly empty, and Lucas ate cereal for dinner, his face scrunched in disappointment. "No pizza?" he asked. "Soon, buddy," Melissa said, her voice strained. She shot Trent a look, but he was buried in his phone, muttering about a late payment. I stayed out of it, knitting in the living room, my silence louder than any argument. Trent noticed, his irritation bubbling over. "Clara, you feeling better yet?" he asked one evening, his tone sharp. "House could use some of your magic." "Still under the weather," I said, not looking up. "You've got it covered though," he scoffed, stomping to the garage. Melissa followed, and their voices rose again, muffled but heated. "What's with her?" Trent snapped. "She's just sitting there." "She's tired, Trent," Melissa said. "She's done so much for us." "Not lately," he muttered. I gripped my needles tighter, my jaw set. "Not lately." Good. Let him feel the gap. The mortgage payment was overdue now. I'd checked the bank's app, my access still active from when I'd set it up. A late fee had been tacked on, and another notice was coming. They'd scramble, maybe dip into savings, maybe borrow from Greg. I didn't care. I wasn't their bank anymore. But the kids, they were the hard part. Emma's ballet recital was next month, and the costume fee was unpaid. Lucas needed new soccer cleats, his old ones pinching his toes. I wanted to step in, to write the checks, like always, but I held back. If I caved now, Trent's words would win. I'd be dead weight forever, invisible until they needed something. So I kept my distance, my savings account growing by small increments, a quiet promise to myself. Melissa cornered me one afternoon, her eyes red. "Mom, what's going on? You're not yourself. Are you sick? Do we need to see a doctor?" I set my tea down, meeting her gaze. "I'm fine, Mel, just reevaluating things. You and Trent have this, right?" She blinked, thrown off. "Yeah, but it's hard. The mortgage is late, and Trent's freaking out. I don't know what's happening." I wanted to tell her about the barbecue, the betrayal, the way her husband had reduced me to nothing. But I didn't, not yet. "You'll figure it out," I said, my voice soft but firm. "You always do." She nodded, but doubt flickered in her eyes. I felt a stab of guilt, but it wasn't enough to pull me back. The house was theirs now, bills and all. I'd been their rope, pulling them forward, and I was done. What came next, I didn't know. Maybe a confrontation, maybe a move, maybe a reckoning. But as I sipped my tea, the silence between us heavy, I knew one thing. I wasn't invisible anymore, and whatever happened, I'd be ready. The tension in the house thickened. A silent storm I'd stirred by stepping back. Melissa's sharp exchanges with Trent echoed through the walls, their voices slicing through the quiet evenings. The fridge stayed sparse. The kids ate cereal for dinner, and the overdue mortgage notice sat unopened on the counter. I watched it all from the sidelines, knitting in the living room, my new savings account, a small but growing anchor. Trent's irritation flared. His sarcastic jabs about my retirement stung, but they only hardened my resolve. I wasn't their crutch anymore, but the guilt gnawed at me, especially for Melissa, who didn't know why I'd withdrawn, and for the kids, whose disappointed faces tugged at my heart. Still, I held firm. Trent's words, "dead weight," had carved a line I couldn't uncross. I needed answers, though. The second mortgage, the one I'd been quietly covering, was a puzzle. Why had it spiked? Why were they drowning now? when I'd kept them afloat for years. I decided to dig. One morning, while Melissa took the kids to school and Trent was at a client meeting, I grabbed my purse and drove to the bank. The air was crisp, Portland's gray sky heavy with the promise of rain. I parked outside the branch, my hands trembling as I smoothed my coat. I wasn't sure what I was looking for, but I knew the bank held pieces of their struggle. Pieces I'd been too busy paying to notice. Inside, the teller recognized me. "Mrs. Jensen, good to see you," she said, her smile warm. "Here for the usual transfer." "No," I said, keeping my voice steady. "I need to check the account history for my daughter's mortgage. I'm still on the account." She nodded, tapping at her computer. "Let's see, Melissa and Trent's joint account, right?" "Yes, everything. Payments, loans, anything tied to the mortgage." She printed a stack of documents, her brow furrowing as she handed them over. "There's a lot here. You might want to sit down." I took the papers to a corner of the lobby, my pulse quickening. Page after page detailed the mortgage, payments I'd made, late fees I'd covered. But then I saw it, a second loan, taken out 6 months ago, in Melissa's name alone. Not a mortgage adjustment, but a personal loan, $40,000, with Trent's signature nowhere on it. The purpose was vague, home improvements, but we hadn't renovated in years. I flipped further, finding withdrawals from their joint account, large sums to unfamiliar names, payees like Riverfront Holdings and Cascade Partners. No home improvement stores, no contractors, just cash, bleeding out. My stomach churned. I asked the teller for more details, keeping my voice low. She pulled up the loan's origin. "It's tied to a debt consolidation firm," she said, glancing at the screen. "Looks like it was used to pay off multiple accounts. Credit cards, mostly. High balances." "Whose cards?" I asked, though I already suspected. "Trent's," she said, her tone cautious. "But the loan's in Melissa's name. Odd, since he's not listed as a co-signer." I thanked her, my mind racing. I requested copies of everything: loan documents, withdrawal records, payment history. As she printed, I pieced it together. Trent had taken out a loan in Melissa's name, forging her signature or convincing her to sign without explaining. The money hadn't gone to the house or the kids. It was covering something else, something he was hiding. I thought of his late nights, his phone always buzzing, the way he'd dodge Melissa's questions about money. Gambling, it had to be. I'd heard him mention sure bets to Greg at the barbecue, laughing it off. But this wasn't a joke. He'd buried them in debt to chase losses, and I'd been paying the price. I left the bank with the documents in a manila envelope, my hands steady now, fueled by a quiet fury. Trent hadn't just called me dead weight. He'd used me, my money, my trust, to prop up his lies. And Melissa, my daughter, was caught in the middle, unaware her name was tied to his mess. I could have marched home, shoved the papers in his face, but that would have been too easy. He didn't deserve a confrontation yet. Melissa did. She needed to know who she'd married. That afternoon, I sat in my room, the envelope on my lap. I pulled out a sheet of paper and wrote a note in careful, deliberate strokes. "Dead weight doesn't carry secrets. Good luck." I folded it, slipped it into the documents, and walked to Melissa's dresser. She was at work, Trent out, the kids at school. I opened her top drawer, tucking the envelope beneath her scarves, where she'd find it, but Trent wouldn't. My heart pounded, but I felt no guilt. This wasn't revenge. It was truth, sharp and necessary. Melissa deserved to see what he'd done. I closed the drawer and returned to the living room, picking up my knitting. The house was quiet, but the air felt charged, like the moment before a storm breaks. I didn't know when Melissa would find the papers. Tonight, tomorrow, next week. But when she did, everything would change. I sipped my tea, the mug warm against my palms, and waited. That evening, the strain in the house was heavier than ever. Melissa burned the chicken she'd tried to cook, cursing under her breath as smoke filled the kitchen. Trent came home late, his tie loose, his eyes bloodshot. "Rough day?" I asked, my tone neutral. "You could say that," he muttered, grabbing a beer from the fridge. "Clients ghosting me, again." Melissa slammed a pan into the sink. "Maybe if you'd answer your phone, we wouldn't be eating charcoal." He rolled his eyes. "Relax, Mel. It's one dinner." "It's not just dinner," she snapped, her voice cracking. "The mortgage is late, Trent. Again. And Lucas needs cleats, and Emma's recital is next week, and I can't keep— I'm handling it," he cut in, his tone sharp. "Back off." I watched, my knitting needles clicking, my face a mask, handling it, like he'd handled the loan in her name, the gambling debts, the lies. I wanted to scream at him, to tell Melissa everything, but the note in her drawer was enough for now. Let her find it, let her see. Emma crept into the room, her eyes wide. "Grandma, why's Mom yelling?" I set my knitting down, pulling her onto my lap. "Just grown-up stuff, sweetie. It'll be okay." But it wouldn't, not for a while. The bills were piling up, the fridge was empty, and Trent's secrets were a ticking clock. I held Emma close, her warmth grounding me, but my mind was on Melissa. When she found those documents, she'd know the truth, not just about Trent, but about me. I hadn't abandoned her, I'd been carrying her, until her husband decided I was nothing. I didn't sleep that night, the note's words looping in my head. Good luck. It wasn't just for Melissa, it was for me too. I'd stepped back, but I wasn't done. Trent's betrayal had woken something in me, a strength I'd forgotten. Whatever came next, a confrontation, a reckoning, or something else, I was ready. I'd been their rope, their bank, their shadow. Now I was Clara Jensen, and I wasn't carrying anyone's secrets, but my own. The note I'd left in Melissa's drawer sat like a live wire in my mind. Its words, "Deadweight doesn't carry secrets. Good luck, waiting to spark." I'd spent the day on edge, knitting in the living room, my ears tuned to every creak of the house. Melissa hadn't found the documents yet, but the tension was already choking the air. Trent's late nights and dodged questions had pushed her to the brink, and the late mortgage notice on the counter was a silent accusation. I stayed quiet, my absence from their daily grind, cooking, paying bills, smoothing edges, widening the cracks. Emma's sad eyes when she ate plain toast for breakfast stung. But I held firm. Trent's betrayal had rewritten the rules, and I was done being their invisible glue. That evening, the storm broke. I was in the kitchen, sipping tea, when Melissa's voice cut through the house, sharp and raw. "Trent, what is this?" she yelled from their bedroom. I froze, my mug halfway to my lips. She'd found the envelope. "What are you talking about?" Trent's tone was defensive, already bracing. "This loan, $40,000, in my name. You didn't tell me. And these withdrawals. Riverfront Holdings, what the hell is that?" I set my mug down, my pulse quickening. The bedroom door slammed, and their voices spilled into the hallway. "It's under control, Mel," Trent said, his voice tight. "I was handling it, she shouted. "We're drowning. The mortgage is late. The kids need stuff. And you're blowing money on— what? Gambling. Are you serious?" "It's not like that," he snapped. "I had a system, okay? It was supposed to pay off." "A system?" Her laugh was bitter, broken. "You forged my name, Trent. You lied to me." I stood, moving to the guest room, my hands steady despite the chaos. This was it, the reckoning I'd set in motion. I pulled my suitcase from the closet, the one I'd brought when I moved in 7 years ago, and started packing. Shirts, sweaters, Paul's old watch, each item a quiet declaration. I wasn't running, I was choosing myself. Their argument raged on, voices overlapping, accusations flying. "You've been lying for months," Melissa cried. "And Mom's been covering us, hasn't she?" "How much, Trent? How much did she pay?" I paused, folding a scarf, my chest tight. She'd seen the mortgage records in the documents, my payments highlighted in the bank's cold print. Trent didn't answer, his silence damning. I zipped the suitcase, grabbing my coat and the small box where I kept my pension checks. I'd need them now. Melissa's footsteps stormed down the hall, and she appeared in my doorway, her face red, tears streaking her cheeks. "Mom," her voice cracked as she saw the suitcase. "What are you doing?" "Packing," I said, my tone even. I didn't look at her, focusing on the scarf in my hands. "Why?" She stepped closer, her hands shaking. "Mom, please, talk to me." I set the scarf down, meeting her eyes. I heard Trent at the barbecue. He called me Deadweight. Said if I wasn't here, you'd have peace and privacy. Her mouth opened, but no words came. Shock, then guilt, flickered across her face. He didn't mean it," she stammered. "He was drinking, Mom. You know how he gets. When someone tells you what you are, believe them," I said, my voice low but firm. "I refuse to stay where I'm unwanted." She grabbed my arm, her grip desperate. "You're not unwanted. I need you. The kids need you. Please don't go." I pulled away, gently but decisively. "You needed my money, Mel, my cooking, my babysitting. But you didn't see me, neither did he. I've been carrying you both, and he thinks I'm a burden. I'm done." Tears spilled down her cheeks. "I didn't know about the loan," she whispered. "I swear, Mom, I didn't know he was gambling." "I know," I said, softer now. "That's why I left you the documents. But this isn't just about the money. It's about respect. I gave up my life for yours, and it wasn't enough." Trent appeared behind her, his face flushed, eyes darting. "Clara, come on," he said, his voice a mix of bravado and panic. "You're blowing this out of proportion. I didn't mean anything by it." I looked at him, really looked, and saw the man who'd laughed off my existence. "You meant it," I said. "And now you'll handle your mess without me." "Mom, please," Melissa begged, her voice breaking. "We'll fix this. I'll make him apologize. Just stay." I shook my head, picking up my suitcase. "I love you, Mel. I love the kids, but I need to love myself too. I'll be at Dina's for now. You know where to find me." She sobbed, reaching for me, but I stepped past her, my heart heavy but resolute. Trent stood frozen, his jaw tight, no apology in his eyes. I walked out, the front door clicking shut behind me, the sound final, like a book closing. I drove to Dina's, the suitcase in the back seat, Portland's lights blurring through my tears. I wasn't sure what came next, a new home, a new life, but I knew I couldn't go back. Trent's words had shattered the illusion I'd built, and Melissa's pleas, though genuine, couldn't mend it. I'd been their safety net, but now I was my own. As I pulled into Dina's driveway, the weight of my choice settled over me, not light, but right. I'd carried their secrets, their debts, their lives. Now I'd carry myself. Have you ever walked away from people you loved, just to save your own peace? What finally made you say, enough? Tell us in the comments. I pulled into Dina's driveway, the suitcase in my back seat, a quiet testament to the life I'd left behind. The weight of walking out, on Melissa's tearful pleas, and Trent's hollow excuses, pressed against my chest. But I didn't turn back. His words, dead weight, had stripped away the illusion that my sacrifices were valued. And the documents I'd left for Melissa, exposing his secret loan and gambling debts, were my final act of truth. I'd carried their family for years, but now, at 64, I was choosing myself. As I stepped into Dina's guest room that night, the future felt uncertain, but for the first time in years, it was mine to shape. Within a week, I used my savings, the pension I'd stopped funneling into their bills, to put a down payment on a small condo a few miles away in Portland. It was modest, a one-bedroom with a balcony barely big enough for a chair, but it was mine. I moved in with just the suitcase, a few boxes of clothes, and Paul's old watch, its steady tick a reminder of the life I'd once had. The first night, I sat on the bare floor, sipping tea, the silence both daunting and freeing. No kids' laughter, no Melissa's rushed footsteps, no Trent's careless jabs. Just me, Clara Jensen, starting over. I needed purpose, something to fill the hours that used to belong to their family. Dina suggested the local library. Knowing my love for books from our old book club days, I started volunteering there, shelving novels, reading to kids, helping retirees navigate the computers. The library smelled of paper and possibility, and the people, gruff old men, shy teens, harried moms, gave me a rhythm. One afternoon, a little girl with pigtails hugged me after story time, and I felt a spark of joy I'd thought was gone. I wasn't replacing Emma and Lucas, but I was building something new, something that didn't ask me to erase myself. Melissa called a few weeks later, her voice shaky. "Mom, can I come see you?" she asked. I agreed, though my stomach knotted. When she arrived at the condo, she looked worn, her eyes red, her hair pulled back haphazardly. She stepped inside, glancing at the sparse furniture, a second-hand couch, a small table, and burst into tears. "I'm so sorry, Mom," she said, clutching a tissue. "I didn't know how much you were doing, how much Trent was hiding. I should have seen it." I handed her a mug of tea, my heart softening but guarded. "You couldn't have known, Mel. He made sure of that." She shook her head, tears falling. "I found more after you left. Credit card statements, betting apps on his phone. He's been gambling for years, lying to me, to everyone. I kicked him out. I'm filing for divorce." I nodded, unsurprised, but heavy. I'd suspected as much at the bank when I uncovered the loan he'd taken in her name to cover his debts. "You're doing the right thing," I said, "for you and the kids." I feel so stupid," she whispered. "And I let him hurt you. I didn't defend you." I took her hand, my voice firm. "You didn't let him do anything. He chose his words, his lies. But you're choosing now, Mel. That's what matters." She hugged me, sobbing, and I held her, the way I had when she was a girl. But I didn't offer to move back, didn't promise to fix their bills or babysit. I loved her, loved Emma and Lucas, but I wasn't their safety net anymore. Melissa had to rebuild, just as I was. She started visiting regularly, often with the kids, who ran to me with hugs that warmed the condo's quiet corners. Emma showed me her ballet recital photos. Lucas chattered about soccer, and I listened, baked them cookies, but kept a boundary. I was their grandma, not their live-in help. Melissa respected that, though her apologies lingered, heavy with shame. "I took you for granted," she said once, helping me water the plants on my balcony. "I'll never do that again." "You're here now," I said, clipping a dead leaf. "That's enough." Trent faded from their lives. Melissa sold the house to settle the mortgage debts, moving with the kids to a small rental nearby. She got a full-time job, leaned on friends, and started therapy, piecing herself back together. I was proud of her, though I didn't say it too often. She needed to feel her own strength, not mine. One evening, as I shelved books at the library, a woman my age approached, her eyes curious. "You're Clara, right? The one who wrote that story online about the neighbor with the bugs?" I nodded, surprised. I'd shared another story, not this one, but word had spread. "It made me check my own house," she said. "Found a weird device in my garage." "Thank you," I smiled, a warmth spreading through me. My voice, once silenced by Trent's dismissal, was reaching others, warning them, connecting us. I kept volunteering, kept writing, kept telling my truth. The condo filled with small joys. A new rug, a shelf of novels, a photo of Paul and me on the wall. I wore his watch every day, its tick a steady pulse, reminding me I was alive, not not dead. Melissa and the kids came for dinner one Sunday, their laughter filling the condo. As we ate cobbler, Lucas grinned, icing on his chin. "Grandma, this is the best." Emma rolled her eyes, but she smiled too. Melissa caught my eye, her gratitude quiet but clear. I didn't need her apologies anymore. We were rebuilding, not the old roles, but something new, equal, honest. That night, alone, I sat on my balcony, the city lights soft below. I thought of Trent, his lies exposed, his life unraveling without me to prop it up. I thought of Melissa finding her footing, and the kids, their joy undimmed. And I thought of myself, no longer invisible, no longer carrying anyone's weight but my own. I'd lost a home, but I'd gained a life. And that, I realized, was more than enough. The Sunday dinners with Melissa and the kids became a ritual, their laughter filling my small condo with a warmth I hadn't known I'd missed. I'd watch Emma sketch at the table, Lucas kick a soccer ball against the wall, and Melissa smile, her eyes lighter despite the divorce and the move to a rental. She was rebuilding, finding her strength, and I was proud, though I kept it quiet. She needed to own this, not lean on my approval. The library kept me grounded. My volunteer shifts a steady rhythm of shelving books and reading to kids. Each day, a step further from the woman who'd poured herself into someone else's life. Trent was gone, his lies exposed, his absence a relief. But I still carried the echo of Deadweight, a reminder of how easily love could be taken for granted. One evening, months after I'd settled into the condo, my phone rang. Melissa's name flashed on the screen, and I answered, expecting her usual check-in about the kids. Instead, her voice was thick, trembling. "Mom," she said, pausing to steady herself. "I'm so sorry. I let him treat you like a burden when you were our lifeline. I didn't see it. How much you gave, how much he took. I failed you." I stood on my balcony, the cool Portland air brushing my skin, a watering can in one hand. Her words hit deep, stirring the ache I'd buried. I'd waited for this, I realized. Not her apology, but her understanding. "You don't need to apologize," I said, my voice soft but firm. "You needed to learn, and you did. That's enough for me," she sobbed quietly, and I let her. The silence between us, heavy, but not unkind. "I love you, Mom," she whispered. "I'm trying to make it right." "I know," I said. "You're doing it. Keep going." We hung up, and I set the phone down, my eyes on the city lights below. Melissa's tears weren't just regret, they were growth, proof she'd seen the truth, not just about Trent, but about me. I wasn't the invisible bank, the cook, the babysitter. I was Clara Jensen, her mother, and she was learning to meet me as an equal. That was more than I'd dared hope for when I'd walked out with my suitcase. The condo had become my haven, its small rooms filled with pieces of a life I'd chosen. A shelf of novels from the library, a rug I'd picked for its soft blues, Paul's watch ticking on my wrist. I volunteered 3 days a week now, reading to kids who reminded me of Lucas, helping retirees send emails, swapping stories with women who'd faced their own betrayals. My online posts about trust and hidden truths, first the neighbor's story, then hints of this one, had sparked a quiet following. Women messaged me, sharing their own moments of being unseen, thanking me for reminding them to check their corners, to value themselves. I didn't need fame, but their words fueled me, a reminder my voice mattered. Melissa visited often, sometimes alone, sometimes with Emma and Lucas, who'd run to me with hugs and drawings. We'd bake cobbler, play cards, laugh until the kids fell asleep on the couch. She never asked me to move back, never leaned on me for money or childcare. Instead, she'd bring coffee, ask about my library shifts, listen when I talked about Paul or the plants on my balcony. It wasn't perfect, but it was honest, a relationship we were building on new terms. Trent's name rarely came up. The divorce was finalized, the house sold to clear the debts he'd racked up. Melissa had a steady job now, managing the kids' schedules with a fierce determination I admired. I heard through Greg that Trent had moved to Seattle, chasing another sure bet. I didn't care. He was a shadow, fading with every day I lived for myself. One morning, as I watered the plants on my balcony, ferns, and a stubborn geranium that bloomed despite the gray Portland spring, I caught my reflection in the glass door. My hair was grayer, my hands worn, but my eyes were clear, alive. I thought of the woman who'd stood at that barbecue, potato salad in hand, hearing Deadweight and swallowing her pain. She was gone, replaced by someone who'd walked away, who'd chosen silence over sacrifice, distance over duty. I'd closed a door, not with a slam, but with a quiet click, and that was enough. I set the watering can down, the geranium's red petals bright against the city's muted skyline. Justice doesn't always come with noise. I thought. Sometimes it looks like silence, distance, and a door you finally closed. I'd lost a home, a role I'd clung to, but I'd gained myself. The kids' laughter, Melissa's growth, the library's rhythm. They were gifts, not obligations. I wore Paul's watch, its tick steady, and smiled. This was my life, on my terms, and I was free. I stepped inside, grabbing my bag for the library. A kid's story time was scheduled, and I'd promised to bring cookies. As I locked the door, my phone buzzed. A text from Melissa. "Dinner Sunday, kids miss you." I typed back, "Wouldn't miss it." The balcony plants swayed in the breeze, and I walked to my car, the weight of the past lighter than ever. I wasn't dead. I was Clara, and I was enough. Have you ever been made to feel like you didn't matter until your absence said everything? If this story touched you, hit that subscribe button and drop a heart in the comments. Let's remind each other that walking away isn't weakness, it's wisdom.